You know, cameras really do just look like this big eyeball just staring at you. Very cold and calculatedly. I could kind of imagine it having a sad face. I don't know if that helps. Hey friends, I'm DW Shepherd and this is my official AuthorTube newbie tag video. A shout out to Jenna the Dark One for putting this together for all of us AuthorTubers. I'm going to be mishmashing a couple of videos to get this done because a couple things got interrupted. So don't mind the changing background or the changing clothes. So let's just go ahead and dive into this. First question is how I found out about AuthorTube. This is kind of an embarrassing story. I didn't know anything about AuthorTube until earlier this year when I got to beta read for my dear friend Rayleigh Bradshaw. She sent a video to all of us beta readers with instructions on how she wanted us to help her and what she was looking for. And I was like, Rayleigh, this video is really great. You know, you should really consider doing a YouTube channel. This is really enjoyable. She very sweetly responded, I actually do have a YouTube channel. I've been doing it for a year. And I was like, foot in the mouth. It just felt really dumb. But she was very sweet about it. Anyway, I found her YouTube channel and I consumed all of her videos. I went back to her and I was just like, tell me about your experience on AuthorTube. And I heard such good things and I was like, okay, I've got to really check this out. This sounds like something I might be interested in. Second question, what genres do you write in? I write in fantasy. Fantasy. My preferred writing tense point of view category. So I've completed 3 novels and 2 of them were third person past tense. One was a YA sci-fi, the other high fantasy, but my current working project is first person past tense. Of those 3, I suppose I've preferred this one just because this is one I've been in longest, but it's been a while since I've written anything different. I've been working on this project for a long time, so we'll find out what I prefer. Am I a plotter, pantser, or plantser? I said that right the first time. I am a wholehearted, converted plotter. I've been working on my current project for so many years, and I've had to have so many different iterations of revisions, and I've just spent so much time in that, mostly because of pretty poor planning. Some of it has been the natural process of world building, but poor planning has been a big part of it, and so it has strongly endeared me to never write something without a meticulous outline ever again. Am I published, self-published, or yet to be published? I am yet to be published. As yet to be published, who's my dream publisher, agent, etc. I used to do a lot of research into this. I followed agents. I loved Janet Reed. I loved reading her agent blog. She's a great resource and she's super interesting to read. I looked a lot more into, you know, publishing houses and stuff like that. And I stopped because it was really just distracting me from actually completing my book. I was looking so far ahead and I was like, I just need to pour myself into this. So I haven't really looked into that in a long time, and since then I've started and I run my own business, and that entrepreneurial experience has caused me to lean a little bit more towards self-publishing than toward traditional publishing, but we'll just see. What AuthorTube videos can we expect to find on your channel? So I wrote down my answers to these because I can get really rambly, but I didn't write an answer to this one. You can expect to find more of a vlog style approach to a lot of this. I'm interested in sharing my goals and getting involved in some of these really fun, really collaborative community projects of really working together. That's really attractive to me. So we'll just see exactly what comes out, but I'm excited to kind of figure out what really sings to me and what I really have to offer all of you. When did I start writing? And what was the first story I ever wrote? I'm going to mesh those 2 questions a little bit. So I have proof that I started writing stories back in 1st or 2nd grade. They were, you know, those little half-page stapled together. I remember one was a bunny and a bear and some berries. I remember because my spelling was atrocious. I remember pulling them out and reading through, and it was a very fun experience to laugh at my horrible spelling. Actually, and after that I mentioned it to my mom, and she's like, I was concerned about you for several years that you would never learn to spell because you were so poor at it. And that surprised me, and then I went, well, I kind of remember in first or second grade misspelling is on a spelling test, so I can see why she was probably a little concerned. I officially started writing my first novel, I think it was around 11 or 12. It was a sci-fi fantasy about a group of orphan boys lived in an orphanage who stole a spaceship to travel from planet to planet to gather flowers that were carved from precious gemstones that all had belonged to one of the orphans' parents before they died. So shenanigans ensued, though it was actually meant to be a somewhat heavy book because the brother that was seeking to, had gathered his friends to go help find these, his younger brother was dying. And it was his whole purpose of gathering these was to have something to give his brother that was part of their family and something along those lines. I have one copy of this book. It is printed and it's packed away somewhere. And like all first novels, it is pretty painful to read. I don't know that I've let my husband fully read that. I remember sitting and starting to read it in the car to him, and the further we got into it, the more just so embarrassed. So embarrassed I felt. And I don't think we ended up finishing it. I should probably find that and make sure that it's in a protected state. What authors inspired me most? This would have to be J.K. Rowling and David Eddings. Harry Potter was the first chapter book that I remember consuming. I think I read it in a day and a half or 2 days, and I just hadn't read books quite like that before that. I had picked up a lot of books and would, like the idea of reading these, big books, but I just didn't read them. I remember a teacher kind of criticizing me for that when I was younger, and I was like, hey. I was somewhat offended. I was like second grade, so I couldn't have been that offended, but I consumed that first book of Harry Potter, and that was, I think, a turning point for me in reading, which subsequently meant that I finally started spelling a little bit better. And then after that, Eddings was the first high fantasy book that I read. I read The Redemption of Alphalus, and I loved it. And it was after that I became a very voracious reader of fantasy through middle school and high school. And so that was what really put me on the path to ultimately start writing fantasy. Do I schedule writing sessions or write when I have time? Kind of a combination of both. I have to be very purposeful about what my plans are for writing, what my intentions and projects are for each week, and I have to kind of have a game plan for how I'm going to do it. I kind of break it down into steps, but in the day-to-day I have to be pretty flexible in how I'm going to actually get that done because my life is ruled by a 9-month-old. Do I use a computer, typewriter, or write everything out by hand, or a combination? When I was younger, I wrote everything out by hand. I had notebook after notebook. I carried them around like a safety blanket. And I did type some stuff up on a typewriter, but I have really poor handwriting ergonomics, and so it actually, across time, started hurting my wrists more and more, and so I ultimately started transitioning over to writing on the computer, and that's where I'm at now, and I'm very happy there. As for where I write wherever. I don't have a dedicated desk and space right now, and most of the time I have to make sure I'm wherever baby is. So a lot of times I guess I write on the couch the most. And finally, what am I most looking forward to now that I'm a part of AuthorTube? Oh, I'm a part of AuthorTube. I love the idea of having a group that I'm accountable to and to be inspired by one. I love that. I function pretty well in that. I like being a part of a real contributing group. I really love working with people who are striving to reach their goals. I am really looking forward to being involved in video collaborations and getting involved with Camp NaNoWriMo's and NaNoWriMo's and Preptobers, and I'm excited and to continue to learn from all of you, especially when it comes to like writing and marketing and publishing. I like to know what's happened before. That's really exciting for me, especially because a lot of times we see the glorified versions of what happens, so it's really exciting to be able to see that in process and see that it happens just for normal people like us. And that's all of the questions. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and until next time.